A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all, depending on from where you are joining from, right? Uh, AI is one of the most booming industries out there, with companies becoming intelligent day by day and the usage of data increasing. The need of data scientists and data professionals has skyrocketed over the past few years. And people joining us from AI and analytics industry would definitely agree to that, right? But while data science is still remains one of the most evolving fields, there are so many open questions, guidance, doubts that haunt all the data science aspirants out there. And according to a report by the Economic Forum published in 2021, data science was actually identified as a skill with the largest skill gap, right? I'm saying that right, with the largest skill gap, right? So, to answer all the questions and doubts, it will be even better if we can get advice not just from someone who has cracked the code of becoming a data scientist, right? But also someone who has seen the industry evolve from its inception and helped hundreds of thousands of aspirants achieve their dreams of becoming a data scientist, right? So, can you guess who that person is? Quickly put it in the chat section, right? It's right. It's Kunal Jain, right? So today, Kunal will be taking up all your questions regarding data science and how to build a career in data science. So I am Ram Devani, a product manager at Analytics Vidhya, and I'll be the moderator for this session, right? Let me spend a few minutes on how I'm planning to run the session. We had floated a form for our community and students to ask their questions with Kunal. And basis the questions submitted, I have created some common questions. I'll take these questions in the first 30 minutes and then we'll open the floor for any questions you might want to ask, right? One request, please use the Q&A section for questions and upvote a question if you have a question similar to the one that has been asked, right? We'll take the most upvoted questions in the interest of time, right? So before getting started, I would just want to take a minute, right? So this AMA series is actually brought to you as an education series for 1729, which is India's largest data science event, right? So as part of the social media bounty, right, you can go ahead today and share your learnings on social media with the hashtag 1729, right? You can share your learnings on social media with the hashtag 1729, and the top 10 shares will actually get a free ticket to this event, right? To this top data science, analytics, AI event of the year. These answers will be selected by the Fractal Analytics, and the Analytics with their team. All right. So again, coming back to our webinar. So to tell you a few things about Kunal, Kunal is the founder and CEO of Analytics Vidhya. He is a data science evangelist and has a passion for teaching practical marketing and data science. He has worked with several clients and helped them build their data science capabilities from scratch. Before founding Analytics Vidhya, he worked at top companies like Capital One and Aviva. He has seen data science field evolve over the last 15 years and holds a wealth of experience that is unparalleled. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Kunal to talk about a few words before we get started with all the questions.
Thanks, Ram. Am I audible? Everyone, am I audible? Yeah. Great.
Yes, Kunal,
thanks everyone for taking time out for this session. It's going to be a very exciting session, and then I'm here for the next 45 odd minutes to answer any questions and help as many people as I can. Right. So really looking forward to the session and interacting with all of you. I was just going through the chat and I can see people from all across the globe. So thanks for taking time out irrespective of your time zones, and really looking forward to interacting with a lot of you.
Great.
Ram, let's get started.
Yeah. So, Kunal, I actually want to ask I want to start the Q&A, right, with the question that you graduated from the field of aerospace engineering from IIT Bombay, right? We are actually curious. How did you actually start your journey into the world of analytics? Were there any buzzwords like data science and AI at that point?
Sure. Great. Thanks. And I think a great place to start this session. Uh, so I passed out of IIT Bombay back in 2006, right? And honestly, at that time, data science was not a keyword. And then, the job description, which I had called it as I would be joining as a business analyst, right? So uh, in respect to the switch from aerospace to analytics, so while I was graduating at that time, the career options in aerospace felt very limiting in India, and then I mean it was very clear that if I have to build a career in aerospace, I would need to spend a lot of time outside India, which I was not convinced and I wanted to be in India in long term, right? So I was going through what other options I have, and that is when I came across Capital One, which was the company I ended up joining. And the job description, in a nutshell, was you would use data to solve business problems, and then that looked very exciting. It was very unusual at that time to hire people out of engineering colleges for roles like this, and but it looked really exciting. And in fact, I at that time I left a few uh, first day companies at my campus to essentially appear for Capital One. So really interesting, and then I think great that I took that call. So yeah, at that time, it was not a buzzword. It was not even a domain which people were aware of. So it was a very very niche domain, and just to share some insights, right? So when I joined Capital One, the tools which we were using at that time were essentially Excel and SQL, right? So you would pull data sets out of SQL, put them in Excel, do analysis, and at any point this number would go about more than 100,000 rows. Excel would crash, right? So that's where it was, and then seeing the domain grow by leaps and bounds to the extent that I mean practically today there is no limit to how much data you could ingest and you could analyze, right? So that's been the journey, and have been building analytics with there for last 8 years, helping people out by learning through my experience, learning through whatever has been my learning.
Wow, Kunal, that's really amazing. So I mean, the industry evolved from Excel with such limited rows to endless type of data. So a great journey, right? Uh, Kunal, my next question to you would be, so you started out in the industry as a fresher yourself, right? And a lot of fresher students face this problem that it's almost impossible to start a career in data science without experience, right? I'm sure there are many freshers who want to transition into data science as freshers in our audience. So what would be your advice or roadmap for them?
Great. So first of all, I mean, how many people today are from, let's say, mechanical or aerospace background? Just want to uh, check that out. So again, you feel free to use chat to say yes or no, or an engineering background. Mechanical engineering, yes, mechanical. Great. Right. So the first insight for the day is, irrespective of which stream and background you're coming from, you can transition, right? I was aerospace engineering, which is a niche within mechanical, right? So as long as you can, solve problems logically, as long as you have interest in coding, you enjoy coding, you can transition, right? So background in that sense, uh, doesn't limit you. You'll just need to make changes and switches in your strategy to go after the data science tools, right? So that's insight number one. Uh, Now, coming to the question around which you were asking, right? So let me classify people who are coming out from various streams into two categories, right? So people who get data science companies in their campus, so they already have access to these roles, and they need to essentially crack those roles. And the second category are people who don't get these companies on their campuses, right? So there are still a lot of companies who don't get enough data science opportunities as part of their campus placements. And again, if you could, just write in chat whether you are falling in category one institute. So if you are a fresher or a person who is just passing out, whether you get companies in your campus looking for data science roles, that's category one. Category two is people who are third category, getting internships. Okay, great. Even if there are internship category, let's say that there are categories in your campus, and you can get that. Okay, I can see both educational background, but currently on break. Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Great. Wow. So it looks like there are more people in category one, which is very heartening, right? So people are have at least access to these opportunities. So for category one people, right? So people who are getting these opportunities and have access to these opportunities, what you should be doing is, you need to just zero in on your goal. I think at least 6 to 12 months before these companies come for placements, right? Uh, and you need to make sure that you communicate your passion for the subject to these recruiters, right? So one thing which you need to do is show continuous learning, right? So at the bare minimum, it would mean that you should be fluent with Python. You should know, let's say, SQL as one of the tools, and you should have, let's say, done a few courses building machine learning or visualization or predictive modeling. And again, the exact depth does not matter so much. What matters is you've put in consistent efforts to do this, and you've been learning something new in this domain. So that's number one, right? So build your profile with these technical skills. Second, try and participate in, let's say, any community events, conferences, meetups, which are happening in your college. If there is an analytics club which you have in your college, go and become a part of it, right? So that's something which you should do good 6 to 12 months before the companies come for placements, because that shows your interest in the domain for the companies when they come into the placement. Now, specifically for interviews, what I would say is prepare really well for the interviews. You're among the lucky ones who get these opportunities from campus, right? So make sure that you give the most of it, right? Because when I talk about the category two, you'll feel the pain of people who don't even get these opportunities. So when you get that opportunity, try to maximize it. So prepare for different types of interviews. Ask your friends to do mock interviews. And then there are enough resources available out there. Again, on analytics with the Excel, there are a lot of interview resources you can use. But essentially, before the actual interview, you would want to at least go through 3, 4 interviews specifically of different formats, right? So one could be, let's say, a guesstimate or a case study. Another one could be about the projects you have done. Another one could be about the skills which you have learned. And if you do these before the interview, I think you should be in good place to crack those interviews. So that's for people who are getting these opportunities at their campuses. For people who are not getting those opportunities, you'll need to work harder, right? You'll need to build your profile stronger, and then you have to reach out to these companies saying that you have really deep passion towards these tools and technologies, and you want to build your career, right? So so the effort which you'll need to do outside of your, let's say, curriculum in college would be higher, but the fundamentals still remain the same, right? So you'll have to do a few courses. You'll need to either learn things, and then again, there are a whole set of options available. You could learn from YouTube. You could learn from, let's say, EndroMG course, which was revised very recently. You could take courses from Analytics Vidhya, anything which works for you, right? So you have to learn these skills. You have to apply these for doing some projects and participate in hackathons. So the importance of this would go drastically if these companies are not coming to your campus. Because when you go and apply to these companies, the position or the pitch you'll be using is that I'm already, working, and I know how I can build these models. I've done a few projects, and that's why I'm a worthy candidate, right? So that's a big difference between category 1 and category 2. Community events, hackathons, competitions become a lot more important if you're category 2. And again, if you're falling in category 2, buy in more time. So you'll need a period of at least 3 to 6 months once you start applying for companies. And then there are companies who would do, offline recruitment drives, online recruitment drives. So participate in those. Be on the lookout which company is conducting their drives at that time. Apply, and then bring those credentials to the table. That's essentially, in a nutshell, what you need to do. So summarizing, take time to strengthen your profile, apply it to projects, hackathons, competitions. Put them on your CV, and then prepare really well for the interviews. That's how I would summarize the answer.
Wow, thank you for setting the entire framework for each and every fresher out there. I guess that's very helpful. So we talked about freshers right now, right? And so as you said that you have built analytics with over the last 8 years, right? And you have advised and mentored hundreds of experienced professionals to help them transition into the field of data science. And as we saw today, we have a lot of experienced professional, almost 30% people from the category of more than 5 years of experience. So could you share some of these tips or guidelines for our audience who is from the
Sure.
working experience background?
Yeah. So so again, I'll divide it in two parts, right? People who are early in their career. So anyone who is in, let's say, 0 to 3 year work experience, right? So recently started their career. For them, if you're not in an analytics and data science role, you can almost switch into the domain like a fresher, right? Because in all likelihood, the salary difference between any other domain and data science would work out. So you'll not see a dip in your salary when you make that transition, even as a fresher. And you need to almost build these fundamental skills. So again, learn Python, learn SQL, apply those on projects. So people early in their career, even if you have a few years of experience or you joined a different domain a year ago, almost treat yourself as a fresher, and then the roadmap which I explained before, you can just continue on that roadmap. Now, people with higher experience, right? So let's say people who have anywhere between 3 to 6, 7 years of experience. For these population or for these people, you need to, on one side, build your fundamentals and coding skills, right? Because when you get into the domain, you would be expected to be hands-on with data science, right? So what you need to do is learn coding. If you don't know it already, learn Python. That's the most commonly used language. Start applying those, and then go through this learning curve. but your focus should be more on application and problem solving, right? So once you've gained some experience, companies would not hire you just because you've done a course in Python or machine learning. You have to showcase that application, and you have to build those projects with very, very sound logical thinking, right? So if you're, let's say, applying XGBoost model or building a XGBoost model, why are you building that? What else did you try? Did you try simpler techniques like linear logistic regression, etc., before you went on to more complicated things? Or if you're building a deep learning model, did you try a simpler version of that model? What was the outcome? What were the challenges? As you grow, and then if you're in that category between 3 to 8 years experience, some of these things would start becoming more and more important. Again, the expectation should be that you would get into hands-on roles, and once you showcase your skills, you can make transition into more, let's say, managerial roles or bigger projects, depending on what interests you. But you'll start as an individual contributor, right? So even if you're a manager in some other domain, you'll not come in as a manager in data science because you don't have that hands-on experience right now, right? So that's number one. In terms of time frame, again, I would say, budget about 12 months plus minus 3 months for the transition. And again, talk to people in domain, look at their projects, talk to the challenges they've faced. And then that should give you a good grounding in terms of what is expected. And once, let's say, you're confident with these skills, you've participated in a few, let's say, competitions or built some projects, that is when you should start applying. And then again, job portals, referrals, your batchmates who are in analytics and data science, those are some of the more efficient ways as opposed to just applying on jobs on like that, right? So that's for people who are in, let's say, in 3 to 8 years domain. And other thing which they can look at is if you could find analytics and data problems in your own domains, right? So let's say you are in automobile sector, right? Can you find a problem which your company is already working on, which has, let's say, a data about customers and applications of data science in automobiles? So finding the right customers, where should your next showroom be to, what are some of the most common challenges in servicing? All of these are problems where data plays a very important role, right? So start looking out for those problems and then apply whatever you're learning outside into the program. That's what you. For people who have even higher experience, right? So 8+ years of experience, you will need to definitely look at applications within your domain, right? So you don't want to give up on the experience you have already collated. So the aim for you is to essentially grow in your career, at least in the same domain in the short term, but position yourself as someone who also brings these skills to the table and then can guide a larger team if required, right? So on one side, you would want to do upskilling. On the other side, you'll want to find out these opportunities in your company, in your domain, in your, let's say, domain-specific conferences. Apply these tools and techniques on whatever problems you can get hands-on. And that's the way you would build. But you would want to stay at the intersection of analytics and data science and the domain you are in. You don't want to start as a fresher and give up on the experience, right? Now the time frame for these working professionals can vary a lot, right? So if you already have some background, so let's say if you were in software development at some point, then the timelines can reduce a lot. But if you are, let's say, completely non-technical field, let's say if you were in HR, right? So what you would want to do is you would want to look at HR analytics opportunities, upskill yourself in Python and then analytics skills. And then again, You could use some of the no code environments, etc., to make sure you come up to speed faster. But you would want to apply this to solve some problems within HR. And HR analytics is where you should first go on, spend a couple of years in HR analytics, and then look for a larger transition, right? So uh, so in those cases, the time frame could be even up to 18 months, right? Once you start learning to actually transitioning, it could take up to 18 months. So that's broadly, some of the tips and some of the learnings which I've seen working really well for people who are looking for transition in the last few years.
Thanks for answering that, Kunal. So, uh, again, just stepping back. So, I hope everyone is taking notes of all these things that Kunal is mentioning. The 1729 tickets are up for grabs. You need to post on social media to get that free ticket of yours. Right. And again, a request to everyone, please post the questions in the Q&A section. And if someone else is having the similar type of question, you can upvote on the question, right? Coming back to the questions that we received from our community, right? And so there are, Kunal, you talked about freshers and also working professionals, but there is a set of people who is from a non-technical background, right? And we get this question a lot, whether the people from non-tech background can successfully switch or transition into the field of data science. So if you can just share your thoughts on that.
Sure. So, as I said, in today's world, do, domain or non-technical domain doesn't matter as much. What you have to see is, can you find those common areas, right? So as I said, right, HR is a completely non-technical domain, but HR analytics is something where you use data very heavily to see who could be good hires for the company, who is at the risk of attriting, what is the right incentive structure for people, what is the right level of performance. All of those are questions which a HR analytics professional would look at, right? So irrespective of which domain you are in, right? So data science and AI and ML has become so prevalent that any domain you touch today, data would be playing some role. And then you want to look at that intersection, and you want to make sure that you are aiming for that. And again, if you're very early in your career, then almost think about it that you're almost a fresher, and then just go for those.
Great, great. So, Kunal, going to the next question, right, which is a very common question within the industry and we received from the community. Can you please tell us the difference between data science, business analytics, data analytics, and data engineering, so that our audience who want to get into the field can choose their career wisely?
Sure. So here is a very, very simple way to look at it, right? So for a minute, let's look at uh, a manufacturing plant. Let's go back to the automobile example, right? So let's say there is a large automobile plant, and then you need people to run this plant, right? And for this company, let's think of different roles which you would need, right? So you would need uh, a person who is continuously researching on how to make these automobiles better, right? So how do you tweak the engine to make the automobiles better? How can you get more efficiency for fuel? Right. So that's one profile. And then typically in industry, any guesses? What would this profile be called? Anyone who would want to guess? R&D, right? So this is essentially what people historically refer to as scientists, right? So as a scientist, you are working on a very, very specific problem, and you are looking at solving that and improving that, and that's your full-time role, right? Uh, in data world, that's the role which a data scientist plays. So as a data scientist, you would work on a very, very specific problem, and you would look at ways, and then, machine learning, AI, ML, all of these are different tools which you use to solve these specific problems, right? So a data scientist at, let's say, Google would be working on improving the algorithm. A data scientist at Facebook might be working on how do we make our advertising more relevant. So very, very specific problems. And then you're looking at these improvements basis the data and the behavior which you collect. That's one profile, right? Now, once this scientist has built something, you need to put it in production, right? So if the scientist has built the next generation of the car engine, it has to go onto the production line, and you need to produce a lot of cars on that new tool or technology, right? Same thing in data science. So once a data scientist has built an algorithm or a way, you need data engineers to essentially take that and put it into production, right? So data engineers would be concerned with what's the most efficient way to transform this data. Can I do it more efficiently? How do I make data from different sources flow and run this model so that the outcome can come in the time which is required? And right, so depending on what problem you're solving, the outcome would be expected in different ways, right? So for example, a data engineer at Uber would have very different problem, because they would want to match these cabs with people who are looking for cabs in real time. So the data has to flow in real time. Versus, let's say, someone who is building a recommendation engine for an e-commerce company, right? You can build a recommendation engine in a batch mode, and it can refresh every night. So there the definition is very different, right? So as a data engineer, you need to take these models and then apply these in real life problem, right? And then data engineers are also referred to as machine learning engineers, and then there are various designations, but that's the class of engineering roles. Now, in addition to this, again, going back to this previous analogy, you would have a management layer, or people who are looking whether things are moving in the right way or not, right? So whether I've got X amount of input material, and then whether the production is moving right, and then they're getting the right number of cars, and then once the cars are produced, where they should be sold, what is the marketing which is happening. So very business oriented function. That's equivalent of business analysts, right? So as a business analyst, you would be working with data to solve these business problems, right? So again, for example, a business analyst at Uber would be looking at how many rides are getting booked on a day-to-day basis. Are there specific problems people are facing? Are there any feedback which they are receiving? Are there drivers which are getting very low rating in a specific area? All of those are things which an analyst would look at. So analysts would look at this, dig into the underlying data, and then come out with insights which the business can use to implement and help the business. So that's the business analyst role. Does that explain what are these different roles, or is there any other family which people would want me to take up at this stage?
Okay,
great. Let's
so I think
please explain ML also. So ML is just a tool which data scientists use to solve these problems without necessarily intervening. So the difference between let's say what an analyst would do and what a data scientist would do is in the type of tool sets which you would use. So as an analyst, you would solve these, will look for insights. As a machine learning person, you would want to just automate it. So how do you match which let's say cab should be assigned to which customer? That's a machine learning problem, right? So the data scientist would build the algorithm, and the data engineer would put it into production.
great. So and also guys, you can
Does
start
the
up.
yeah, does the work of the two overlap? So the ML engineer would need to understand engineering from a deployment perspective, and the data scientist should know what are the challenges which would come in when this goes into production. Because ultimately, if the data scientist builds something which cannot be put into production, he or she will need to change the algorithm. And similarly, if the ML engineer doesn't know what the algorithms are doing, he may not be the expert at it, but he needs to know what is the frequency at which it would be refreshed. So both of them need to understand each other at a high level, but the role may not overlap unless you are in a startup. Yeah.
So guys, I request you all to please use the Q&A section to ask your questions. We are seeing a lot of upvotes and we'll be taking up these questions towards the end, right? So Kunal, another important question. So we have talked a lot about the transition and the switching, but can you please share some of the resources or courses that our audience can refer to in order to study data science or machine learning?
Sure, sure. So again, what I would say is think of two things before you decide which resource to use. How much time do you have, and what is your preferred way of learning, right? So whether you want to, so if you are a student, you want to sit for interviews in 6 months, 12 months time, or let's say if you're a working professional, how much time do you have before you want to make a switch, right? So that's one dimension, and the second one is what is your preferred way of learning, right? So as a student, let's take as a student who has time, right? You could look at self-paced programs. You could look at YouTube. You could look at the Coursera course. You could look at courses on Analytics Vidhya, where the idea is you're going through these courses, you're understanding, you're applying, but you are essentially doing these by yourself, and that's why these are usually referred to as self-paced courses, right? Now, to do this, you have to be extremely motivated. You need to make sure you are comfortable with ambiguity, because you'll feel into some doubts at times, and that's where, for example, having access to mentors could really help. So mentorship along with self-paced learning could be very, very useful in these scenarios, right? So that's one category. Uh, if you don't have as much time, or you are not as comfortable with learning things by your own, you tried it but you're not able to navigate, or you're feeling confused, then you can even look at either instructor led programs, or you can look at programs which are run with a predefined intensity and have a lot of hand holding, right? So for example, people early in their career, uh, we have a 6 month boot camp program where the program starts on a particular day. There are classes happening, assignments, etc., and then there is a defined outcome, right? So you have to decide on what is your preferred way. In both the ways, transitions have happened, right? Some of the best transitions I've seen have happened in self-paced manner, because people build their fundamentals really strong. And in long term, irrespective of whether you go through a self-paced program or an instructor-led program, you would need to become comfortable with finding your own answers, right? So in long term, that's really a great skill to have. So that's one on the courses, right? In addition to courses, look out for these community events, community activities which are happening, right? And then you'll be surprised to know this, right? So in Delhi NCR, one of the most active meetups I know about was initiated by a student, right? So there is absolutely no restriction that you need to be in this domain to start a meetup group or to reach out to influencers. Once you've decided what you want to do, you can just go after it, right? And there is so much help available in form of these, let's say, webinars, meetups, community activities, mentorships, use that along with your learning so that you don't feel lost. You get a hang of what is happening in the industry, right? So those are some of the tips which I can share. And again, once you are starting to apply for various roles, etc., just do a lot more preparation, mock interviews, etc., would really help.
Great, Kunal. Um, while these were, we can refer to these courses. But another question that we have is that what are some of the ways that aspiring professionals can actually interact with industry professionals and learn from them?
Right. So as I said, start with meetups, conferences. 1729 is a great place. So if you are a beginner, right, an event like this can be a great place to come and interact with experts, ask your questions, and then so there we are also seeing some physical events starting to come back. That's usually the best place to go, right? You could use LinkedIn to just reach out to people. Some people would respond, some would not. But that's the other thing. If you are in a college, reach out to your seniors who are working in this domain, right? That's the other thing. But essentially, be actively involved. And then again, replicate this when you have learned it, right? So whatever help you are seeking from people, once you are on the other side, that's something which you should do, right? So share your knowledge, and then you'll see a lot of people doing this really well. So they went through learning, and then they are sharing it back. And then I know quite a few people who are very open to helping their you can reach out to them on LinkedIn or GitHub or whatever social media platforms they use, and that's a good place to start.
Great. Awesome, awesome. So, Kunal, I have last question for you before I
Yeah.
move to the Q&A section. So, what do the next 3 to 5 years look like in the data science industry, right? In this ever-changing world, what would remain relevant and what would perish? Also, given
Sure.
so many uncertainties in the macroeconomic environment, will the data science industry still grow?
Sure. So, stepping back, right? We are still just scratching the surface of data science industry, right? And why do I say so? Just look around yourself, right? Today, a lot of data is getting generated, but we are still not using it as intelligently as we can, right? So just taking one example, right? Healthcare. Till 3-4 years back, or maybe 5 years back, right? Wearables as an industry didn't exist, or it was very, very niche. Today, almost every person is wearing a wearable, right? But these wearables are coming from different companies. The data is not getting utilized, or it's getting utilized in silos, right? What you'll see going forward is people starting to aggregate this data, people starting to use it more meaningful. So the systems which we have today, right? So my ACs are from Samsung, my fridge is from LG. They don't talk to each other in a common language, right? So we are moving towards a universe where this convergence is bound to happen. And think about the opportunities it will create, right? You would know various kind of insights coming from these different types of data sets. You'll generate more data. So in that sense, we are still in very, very early phase of what analytics and data science can do. And then my sense is in the next 5 to 10 years, this is going to be one of the most exciting areas to build your career on, at least for that period, if not more, right? And then a good analogy to look at it is, where was software industry in let's say late 90s? And then look at the amount of demand. So yes, a lot more tools have come in, but the demand for a software professional is still running very high, right? So in that sense, even if you assume that there would be some acceleration in technology, at least for the next 10 years, there is going to be a very, very high demand for people in this domain, right? What would stay, what would not, it's very hard to predict, right? Python as a language, for example, was not the mainstream language 5 years back. Today, almost every company is shifting to Python. There could be new languages, there could be new, let's say, technologies like quantum computing, etc. All of those. So the only constant in life of a data scientist is change, right? So there will be new tools, new techniques which will keep coming. So that's very hard to predict what would happen, and I don't want to do that. That's almost useless. But as long as you're continuously learning on a day-to-day basis, this career is going to stay for at least a decade.
Wow, thanks for answering that question. So we have answered almost all the questions that were asked by the community on the form that we had floated, right? So thank you, Kunal, for answering all these questions. Now we'll be actually moving on to the Q&A. So we have a question by Vijay, which got the most upvotes.
Yeah.
He asked, how to become an AI freelancer?
Yeah. So great question, Vijay. And again, it's a very commonly asked question. So first thing first, right? So you should not aim to become a freelancer if you're not in this domain already, because then you don't have the credentials, you don't have the actual experience of building these products, right? So the first thing, if you're transitioning, you should first build your credentials, and the best way to do that is by joining a company or a company which is working on it or doing some projects on your own. If that is already there with you, right? So you have a portfolio of projects, you have some experience, then getting freelance work is a lot more easier, right? So there are portals which you could use where these projects are already there. And again, if you're starting fresh, you might need to almost bid low in the initial few projects, right? So you could use these platforms. You could use your connect in the industry and references. That's usually easier in the earlier phase, right? So if you have friends or people in your network who are working in industry and they need help in their teams, and then in the initial days some of the work might look less exciting, right? So for example, one of the initial, so I know a person who started doing freelancing. For the initial 6 to 9 months, most of the work which this person was doing was integrating different sources, right? So there is a, let's say, real-time stream coming, and then there are a few data warehouses, and then you have to essentially do a lot of engineering work. But once you've established yourself with the right credentials, you can very quickly start getting very, very interesting projects, and that's usually the strategy which I recommend the most, right? In terms of the actual platforms, so the standard ones like freelancer .com, or there is Experfy, which is focused entirely on analytics and data science. We also, for example, at Analytics Vidhya, whenever we get any community opportunities, we pass it on to community members. So that could be the other area. So keep participating in these competitions and jobathons and hackathons, and then those could lead to opportunities.
Great, thank you. So again, a request. So we are towards the end leg. So kindly upvote the questions that you feel is relevant to you, and we'll take that question up. Right. So the next question is from Ajit. Right. He says that he's from a fresher in this field and from a mechanical engineering background. So which kind of project should he select to improve his profile?
Right. So great again. And then I think while he's from mechanical, I think the answer would be a lot broader, right? So any non-computer science field can almost use this as the way to transition, right? So and then I might be repeating some of it what I've already said, but first thing, learn the basics really well, right? So again, going back, Python, SQL, stats, uh, EDA, machine learning, that's something which you should definitely learn in parallel. Now, when you're learning, start applying these to projects, competition. So again, competitions is a good way to get hands on some real life problems, right? So again, just to give an example, you know, 10 days back, there was a competition on Analytics Vidhya about predicting performance of sports people, right? Now that data set is available for you to essentially get your hands dirty on, right? So there is a lot of these very, very interesting data sets which are available in these competitions, right? So irrespective of whether you can participate and do well on leaderboards, you should start getting into these competitions. You should see what other people are doing, right? So a lot of people share their approaches, share their learnings when they participate in these competitions, right? So if you go, for example, again on analytics, along with the leaderboard, you'll see that read the approach of the candidate. So you could read those, and then this ecosystem never existed before, right? So I'm getting a problem which is an industry problem. I am looking at it and I'm also seeing what solutions have people built on it. And then you have to improve on it. So once you do it for 2-3 problems, each of these are good projects which you could work on. And then as a fresher, good thing is people don't expect you to complete end-to-end projects, right? So companies would not expect that. What they would expect is if you are mentioning a particular project, you would be able to answer any question. So, for example, which algorithm did you apply? What data cleaning did you do? What challenges did you see in different features? Did you do any specific feature engineering? So those would be the questions you would get. People would not, focus, or companies would not focus as much on, okay, did you implement this? So for a fresher, it's a lot more easier to work on these problems, take those learnings, and then showcase them in the interviews.
Great. Thanks for answering that, Kunal. So, Kunal, my next question would be from Harshpreet, right? This question was again repeated elsewhere also, that should we need to have DSA knowledge for data science and machine learning jobs?
Right. So so DSA knowledge is definitely required. Unless you know these data structures, you'll not be able to implement these tools and techniques efficiently, right? It is a lot more critical for a person whose role is more engineering focused, as opposed to, let's say, someone who is working on optimizing of algorithms. Having said that, both scientists as well as the engineer should have a DSA knowledge. And then, so again, if you're in college, make sure that you understand these data structures, what are the benefits of using a particular structure more over the other. And so early in your career, you definitely need this as one of the key skills.
Sure. So Kunal, in the interest of time, my last question to you would be that regarding data science internships. So Harshpreet and Tithi Hunka has asked that how to apply for data science internships.
Right. So, again, good thing is that the ecosystem has really grown a lot. So there are companies who are floating internships. Now, how to apply? So I think Internshala, for example, is one portal where I see a lot of very relevant internships coming. And the underlying principles still remain the same. So the companies would judge you on whether you have been learning in this domain and what sort of problems have you kind of worked on, again without going into actual implementation. How robust was your thinking, how much was problem solving, right? So Internshala is one. The other thing which we'll be doing at Analytics within about 15-20 days is we'll be floating a course for people who are in their summer break, and there would be a competition at the end where you could essentially participate and then get yourself selected for internships, right? But by and large, there are a lot of internships available. I see them on Internshala, definitely. I see them on a few other portals. So go apply for these internships, and then in fact, as part of 1729, Fractal is also offering internships. If you are there at 1729, there would be internships up for grabs from Fractal as part of 1729. So there are enough opportunities. You just need to be a bit more, aware and glued into the ecosystem to essentially find those. So as long as you keep your eyes and ears open, you are in this community, you'll find these opportunities very, very.
Wow. Thanks, Kunal, and thanks for revealing that we have the internships up for grabs in Fractal Analytics as part of 1729. So, Kunal, uh, what would be your last words to the entire community? Any piece of advice?
Sure, sure. So first of all, thanks for taking time out and staying through the session. Right, this in itself is something which not a lot of people do. So if you have come and then you have gained something useful, that's a great start. Now coming to a few thoughts which I would just leave. So one, irrespective of whether you build a career in data science or not, keep learning. Try and keep a few hours on a daily basis towards learning new things, new tools, new technologies, because as I said, change is the only constant, right? So tools which I was using when I started my career, or when I was even 7 years into my career, are no longer relevant today, right? And then I'm sure this is not just me. People who came into software engineering, people who came into any role, your role is bound to change and evolve, and the entire structure is going to do change. So be open to those. It's like you have to almost disrupt yourself before you get disrupted. So that's one. Keep learning on a regular basis. And the second thing, what I would say is, given the amount of interest on transitioning, is if you try and look at the end state at all times, it might look very, very daunting. A easier thing to do is just break it into smaller steps, have a very clearly laid out roadmap, and again, for example, say that I'll start with learning Python, then I'll add SQL, then I'll look at stats, EDA. And at that time, at one time, you're only focused on that one particular tool and making yourself better in that tool or technique. And that helps immensely, right? So be clear of what you're doing on short term, and then try and stay present, as opposed to, thinking that I have to become a data scientist and then, oh, what do I need to do? So try and break your steps into small things, and then stay focused, and then stay, genuinely learn these small steps out of curiosity, and then I'm sure you'll reach your larger goal. So that's I think broadly what I would share. Once again, thanks a lot, everyone. I think there were very, very interesting questions. I still see some of these, I could not take, but I think I have covered a very, very large spectrum, which I could in the time we had available. And this should hopefully help a lot of you in seeking the answers you were looking at, right? So all the best. And then again, if you have any questions, feel free to send those to us. If you are still early in your career, need some clarity, 1729 could be a great event. It's meant for people who are seeking that clarity, who want to understand what's going in the domain, and then what. So there would be experts who almost even I look up as mentors, who would be there sharing their journeys. So if you are someone who needs that help, it could be a very great event to be a part of.
Thank you, Kunal, for taking out your time and sharing your thoughts with us.